All right, the recording's in progress. Would somebody like to volunteer a prayer?
I'll do one. I'll do the Lord's Prayer. That's all right.
All right, that's great. Go for it.
The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me down the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yeah, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen.
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 Thank you for that.
Thanks, Pablo.
So, Clyde, do you want to say anything real quick?
Yeah, I just want to say this is a dual purpose for this meeting, and glad to see so many people on the call. And we plan on sending this to a lot more that couldn't be on the call.
Yes.
But the first one is to hear Curtis's story of a very, very clear experience of proof of status change. A lot of times, you know, a lot of us don't. I've done it twice now, and I'm not sure where I am on status, you know, with the government. So you know, I really want to hear what Curtis has to say, and I think a lot of people all over the country want to hear what he has to say, because you know, it's not clear sometimes. We go through these status changes, we think, but we're not absolutely sure. So I'm really excited to hear Curtis's story, and everyone else I'm sure is too. But also, TJ and I have talked a lot about this. I think Dave Roberts is on, I hope so. And many other people that are in different organizations around the country that are trying to do the same thing in terms of this state national movement. And Pablo and I had a talk about this a couple of weeks ago. We really feel there's a need for a group that wants to bring all of these different groups together, because I have a feeling there's millions of people that have tried to or attempted to change their status, and are fans, and are you know, learning more about the state national movement and how powerful it is. So I think that we need to unite, and we could be much, much more powerful. So that's the other purpose of this meeting. So that's pretty much all I have to say. So I'd love to hear Curtis's story, and then maybe we can talk a little bit more about, you know, steps we can take to unite all the different groups that are involved in this.
Clyde, would you mind, Curtis, would you mind if I just for 1 minute just express an idea that I had that we were talking about?
Sure.
Go ahead.
So the idea, I found myself telling a story over and over, my story. I've had a lot of experience. I proclaimed my own nationality as a Moor back in 2019. The FBI showed up on me immediately. My brothers that I was studying with, they told me this would happen. And the FBI told me I didn't break any laws. They want to know if I was harboring fugitives, who I was teaching. So I tell this story all the time. I'm trying to find, you know, tell people, and sometimes I tell it well, and sometimes it's a little jammed up. But one of the things that I learned with my Moorish brothers is that when we talk, we gotta put mile markers to it, you know, a timeline. And so the idea that I had was to gather a representative from each of the main groups that is working, you know, like, and these representatives will put together a timeline of what they've done, and with receipts, so that these representatives can go somewhere together, maybe an Airbnb for a couple of days, one night, and sit in a circle and pass the timeline to each other, give each other half an hour to go through it, take notes, take questions, and bring that back to the groups, you know, kind of like representatives do for the states.
Sure. That's a wonderful idea. In fact, I think Clyde has proposed one of those meetings for February. Is that correct, Clyde?
Yeah, that's what I'm proposing.
Sure.
After the holidays, I think February would be a great time to to
You know,
get,
and that's been the biggest problem. You know, I've been in this movement for close to 40 years now. And the biggest problem was organization, getting people organized enough. I think the closest person that came to getting it organized was Tim Turner.
yeah, I agree.
And you know, but the problem with it is when the organization gets big, they send in their COINTELPRO people and break it up. And that's exactly what happened to Tim Turner.
Yeah,
And you know, and that's the problem. And so we've got to be able to be conscious enough and aware enough for those types of people, because they have certain traits. And one of those certain traits is they are pathological liars. And they know how to talk. And they know how to smooth things over. And so you got to watch out for that. I've been aware of them since the 90s. And we ran across it over and over and over again. And in some cases, they come into these groups and try to get them to do illegal things. Now, Pablo, to follow up on what you said about the FBI showing up on your doorstep, one thing you got to remember to tell them: you only have jurisdiction to investigate U.S. federal personnel. And that's exactly what a U.S. citizen is a federal personnel by definition.
Yeah, they were very kind. I had a good experience with them. I spent like 4 hours in an interrogation room. They tried to ask me, you know, do you want to talk to us? Would you sign a release? I said, I don't need to sign. Man of God, I'll tell you the truth, you know. So we spoke for 4 hours. They filmed me, and then I went to coffee. I explained to them about the history of the Moors, which I think is also, that information is kind of missing in our knowledge field. And then they were so interested that they wanted to go to coffee with me. So I went to coffee with them for like 4 hours a couple of days later. And then they asked me, you know, would you inform on these Moors that are using, you know, the knowledge to take things from people? I said, of course. They said, okay, you know, we could pay you, you know. And I said, no, that puts me in a jurisdiction. So they smiled. They saw this. They knew that I knew. And they said, you didn't break any law. And that was it, you know. And that was back in 2019. All I ever did was file an affidavit of birthright and political status on the recorder, on legal paper, as a Moor, proclaimed a new name, and that was it. So I've done the whole David Straight method and everything after that. It hasn't had the same effect. But yeah, my
You're going to hear some
was,
about that tonight too from Curtis.
Yeah, my
But
main idea
anyway,
was
you know,
to make
Wesley
a timeline.
Snipes.
Sorry, yeah.
Wesley Snipes was a Moor. He ended up doing 2 years in the federal pen for, you know, willful failure to file. And I worked on his case for quite some time. And he hired attorneys. And I started realizing, several of us started realizing early on, that his attorneys were selling him down the river without a paddle. And we tried to tell him, and he's going, no, these guys will do what I tell them to do. And I said, okay, we're going to find out if that's true or not. So I wrote 2 briefs for him that were based on their statutory law and case law, because he had the perfect defense, which was the reliance defense, because he was relying on a tax attorney and a tax accountant. And so I wrote those 2 briefs and gave them to him, and he gave them to his attorneys, and his attorneys wouldn't file them. And I said, I'll tell you what, right there, that's telling you that they're selling you down the river. And you know what was really funny? After they set down his sentence, them 2 attorneys got up in front of the news and sat there and told the news media how much of a quack he was. And that was just further proof of it. So you can't trust attorneys. And but anyway, you know, he was a Moore, and we were trying to make that argument as well. And the biggest problem is these attorneys wouldn't file his affidavits, because you've got to have your affidavit. If it's a criminal tax case, you got to have your affidavit in there that clearly states, I am not a U.S. citizen. And, you know, there's a man, I hope he's on here tonight, Lewis. He did that. I believe it was in 04, either in 04 or 08. 04, I believe it was. And the judge says, wait a minute, before we go forward here, we gotta talk about this affidavit. You know, Lewis, Mr. Hughes, is not a U.S. citizen. And the prosecutor tried to prove that he was by showing documents that were done back in the 80s. And he says, I don't care about anything back in the 80s. What I care about is this affidavit right now. And he ended up dismissing that case. So if you guys learn anything tonight, don't forget to put your affidavits into the record, because if you don't, in a court case, they're not going to listen to anything.
And do it on legal size paper. I'm not sure if people know that, but
paper size really makes a difference, because I've been using 8x11 for 40 years and I've never had any trouble.
yeah, it doesn't necessarily get it thrown out, but it does come down to the judge's decision whether or not he accepts the paper. So he can accept 8.5x11, but let's say it's something they really want to go against you. If you didn't put it on legal, it goes out the window.
Well, so here's
I've gotten
where
that from lawyers and judges.
Because that's an appealable error. I mean, you know, back in the Davy Crockett days, when there was a farmer that there was a fire going on, and the police had came by and took his shovel, the farmer's shovel, to go use it to help put out this fire. And he wrote a suit on a grocery bag and filed it and won the lawsuit because it was unlawful taking. And so, you know, that's an appealable error. And here's one thing that you've got to remember. If you're not willing to go all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, don't get involved. And that's something I want to bring up here today, because I have a client that's willing to go take these issues of citizenship, along with all the other issues, the taxing issues mainly, all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. And we're just getting started. We're exhausting administrative procedure right now, because you have to do that first. It's called Form 95. Go look it up. Just type in Form 95 and the laws and the form will come up, and you'll understand what I mean. If you don't exhaust administrative procedure first, you do not have permission to sue the United States. Now, states have their own set of laws that are very similar. And you've got to alert the proper authorities of that form, whether it's on the state level, on the Fed level, it's DOJ and the agency that you're suing. So with all that said, you know, this lady is going to need help along the way. And so there's going to be a time when I'm going to send out email blasts for donations. because it's gonna take time and it's gonna take money. It's probably gonna take 2 to 4 years just to get to the US Supreme Court if we have to go that far. We don't know. You know, Form 95 may take care of the whole situation. But, you know, we're talking about a state citizen who is under attack right now by the IRS. So, and they're not listening to anything. And of course, that's on the agent level. And I told her when she came to me, I said, well, you got to quit chasing the dog's tail because that's all you're doing. You're trying to argue with this agent and you're going to get nowhere with them.
Yeah.
You've got to get ahead of the game. And the way you get ahead of the game is Form 95. It's the reason why the Brunsons lost their case. They did not exhaust administrative procedure first. You know, they thought, well, the Constitution does that. Well, I agree with them on that point, but the courts today don't. Somebody needs to mute. And I think it's a phone. I believe it's 508-878-8390. Please mute. So with that said, I want to introduce Curtis. And let's get into his story because this is going to help a lot of people. And Curtis, if you want to give your last name, that's fine. That's completely up to you. I will not give it. But his real first name is Curtis. I met Curtis for the first time when I did the Mississippi seminar, if I remember correctly. Is that right, Curtis?
That is correct.
But we had talked prior to that over the phone or Zoom or something. I don't think I had Zoom then. So how did you, so Curtis, say hi to everyone and then we'll get into the questions. We're going to kind of do this as a interview type of a thing.
So, hi, everybody. I'm Curtis Linton. That's my real last name. So I started this process when I come across some of David Straight's videos and teachings. I started down that rabbit hole in 21, started with his affidavit, went to his second step, which was allodial title, doing MOCs and gaining title of your land. I was studying and researching on that and pretty much found everybody who was trying to complete that step along with myself was running into roadblocks. So around that same time, I'd come across TJ and Lewis. Started talking with Lewis about some of the roadblocks that we were hitting in David Straits, and we had several discussions on that, and pretty much learned that he was a fraud. He's leading people down a path that's not going to be any good for him. So started TJ's process in 21. If I'm remembering correctly, I filed his affidavit in late June of 21. Well, it was told forever that you got to wait 60 days before you do anything. At that time, because of all the back and forth I went through previous, I wasn't a very patient person on it. So one of my good friends is a narcotics officer with the Mississippi State Police. I was over at his house one evening. It's 4 months later, sitting down talking with him and his wife is a bar card criminal defense attorney. I just asked him on a whim just to run my license. I'm curious as to what my NCIC says. He went to his car, got in it, fired up his computer, typed everything in. He looks over at his wife and she walks to the car, gets in, looks. She immediately comes to me and asks me what was it that I did. She has never seen that in her professional legal career. And I'm looking at her and I said, like, seen what? I mean, can I see it? And my buddy told me, no, legally I can't show you. I will get in trouble. And she's still standing there asking me that question. And I said, man, can you tell me part of what's on it? He shuts his computer, gets out the car. We go in his house away from his car. And he says, I'll tell you the one thing that jumped out at me was do not detain, do not harass without express written consent from the state attorney general.
That's exactly what it's supposed to say.
And I was kind of took back for a moment because I was happy that it went through, but then excitement took over. And the whole while, his wife and him both are asking me questions. How in the hell did you get that put on there? Who do you know that we don't? Well, when I started talking to him about state citizenship, it was like I was speaking French to him, but his wife knew exactly what I was talking about.
Curtis, can you repeat that statement that you said that's supposed to be on there?
Well, according to him, it's 3 paragraphs. The one statement he told me that stood out to him was, do not harass, do not detain without express written consent from the state attorney general.
That's exactly what it's supposed to say. See, that happened to me when I got pulled over, except for the police officer didn't tell me what it said. But when he came back, he handed me those infamous 3 papers back and he said, I can't write you a ticket. I mean, he just blurted those words right out. And then he became the friendliest person in the world. And he started asking me questions. And when he got to the second question, I started realizing what he was seeing on his computer. And it's that same thing. And so go on, Curtis.
Well, it was surprising to me, and I didn't put 2 and 2 together at the time, but her as a licensed attorney, she knew exactly what it was, what it meant, and knew everything I was telling her to be factual.
So did she fill you in on any of her knowledge of that, or?
She did not. She told me I was on when I got to asking her questions about certain things. She started telling me things like, well, you're on the right path. Check this out. Or no, you're far off topic. You need to be looking over here. She was very vague in her responses. And only thing I could come up with on that as to why she would never sit down and have a true, honest conversation is because she knew that I was aware of the fraud that they were doing, and that if she gave information out, they would snatch her bar card immediately.
Sure.
So we go forward from there. I'm still studying and researching. Think the next one was the child support. So my daughter, turned 18 in November of 22. And Louisiana law on child support states 18 or graduates high school, whichever comes first. The state of Louisiana, in all their infinite wisdom, immediately stopped child support on her 18th birthday. I knew nothing about it till I got a letter in the mail stating that they were stopping the wage garnishments and closing the case. We fast forward February of 23, they want to reopen the case because she was still in school. And wanting to charge me over $3,000 in arrearages. Several phone conversations and letters back and forth later, I'm telling them, said, no, that's not how it works. I didn't ask you to stop it. You stopped it on your own. Now you're trying to penalize me for your mistake. I'm not paying that. You know, there's 3 months left of the school year. She's graduating. I will give her money for the next 3 months. I'm not giving you anything. Still going back and forth on it because child support operates just like every court in America does. It's all about consent. They can't do anything without you consenting, but they'll try every little trick in the book.
Sure.
So they had tried sending a income withholding statement to my employer without me knowing. My employer waited 2 weeks to put it in until they talked with me. And I pretty much told them, I said, no, this is a legal matter. We'll go to court on it. And so they held off for 2 weeks. I requested a court date through the state for them to prove that I owed anything. Well, we get to court. Of course, I'd filed my status doc along with a guy named Zen. He does a bunch of documents. Also filed one of his kill warrants into it. And I went into court, and the judge looked at me, looked at the paperwork, said, "Oh, we're ready to proceed." I said, "No, ma'am, we're not." She glanced at me. I said, "I waive the court. Run me my jury." She got up and left the courtroom. So
You won at that point. All you had to do is say this court's, I have in control of this court, and it's dismissed.
right. And at that time, I didn't know that. I was still learning. So when she left, I said, case closed. And I left. Well, apparently during that time, they submitted another income withholding that the judge signed, starting to take money from my paychecks. I sent that same kill warrant along with the Civil Rights Code attached to it, to the judge and to the head woman of the Baton Rouge Child Support Enforcement, informing them that if they wish to proceed any further, I will see them in federal court for the tune of $2 million in damages personally, as they violated the law. And then that sparked a whole nother conversation with CPS, because they don't violate the law. They follow statutes according to them, which is the law. So that's when I find out that child support and alimony is not based on statutes or codes. It's based on guidelines that each agency determines themselves. And it's all a direct violation of your civil rights and constitutional rights.
Definitely the Ninth Amendment.
The Fourth Amendment also. And well, child support and alimony court orders are nothing more than a rush to judgment and a default judgment. That's all they are, because they're directly tied to Title 4D of the Social Security Act.
Sure.
So for every dollar they take from you, they return $1.50 from the federal government. Every one of them does. It's all fraud. So with that kill warrant and the civil rights code and fees, I started 4 weeks after getting checks back in the mail from what they had taken. We ended up with 6 total checks at $643 and some change a piece.
So you got money back from
I
the
got back
Child
what they,
Support Enforcement Agency.
yes, we got what they took back. We didn't
That's
get
good.
any more or any less. They gave us what they took back, and got the second closure notice. Well, during that time, I come across a older man who is local to me that's fighting child support and winning. Well, we got together. We're currently working on paperwork to close cases, to retrieve all the money that you've paid in, no matter how long, because there is no statute of limitation on fraud. And to also sue the agency for $2 million per time you have to go to court, because each time is a violation of rights. We're getting close to being done. Right now, we're just in an intense fellowship arguing over the finer points of what may need to be in it and what doesn't. So once we're done with that, I will release it to TJ, Lewis, Ari, Zen, and a bunch of other people that I know of so that they can get it out.
All right, thank you for that.
Problem. It will be free. I'm not looking to make a dime off of anybody else's misfortune. So now the last win was taxes. I had held off on doing my ROE because every time I file, of course, I always owe the federal government money. Well, in 21, we were still paying what we owed on for 20. Well, 21 comes around, I file, of course, hey, no surprise, I owe again.
So stop right there. When you filed your 20 and 21 taxes, did you do that on a 1040?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Did you
All done.
alter that 1040 in any way?
No. No, no way. That's all done electronically. All my information, as I went back and looked at the last 6 tax returns, name's the same, social security number's the same, address was same, nothing changed. So
You
21,
even put the social security number that the Social Security Administration appointed to you on that electronic 1040?
yes.
Okay.
So in 21, when I filed my taxes, we had just paid off what they said we owed from 20. Was no surprise, 21, we owed the same thing. We didn't set up a payment plan at that time to pay them. Well, we go to 22, file taxes. Same thing, they say we owe. 2 months ago, my wife gets an email that our 21 and 22 taxes have been rejected because they cannot verify my identity. A few days after that, we get letters in the mail from the IRS stating the same thing.
So now you're invisible.
Right.
They started realizing that you wasn't a US citizen.
And they can't profit off of my labor.
Exactly, because you gained your rights back as a state citizen.
Correct.
So what did this letter have to say?
That was it. It was just one simple paragraph, of course, letterhead IRS, just simply stated that our 21 and 22 taxes were rejected because they could not verify my identity, and it listed me by full caps name.
You know, that's really funny because they certainly did prior to that.
Right.
And so they must have checked at some time, you know, between 21 and 22 and started realizing that you were a citizen that they couldn't tax.
Yep.
So did you scan that letter in?
No, I didn't. It is currently in a box as we're moving from our temporary apartment to our house.
Oh, okay.
I dug through boxes yesterday and this morning trying to look for it. Apparently, I dug through all the wrong ones.
So basically it just said they couldn't verify your identity or couldn't verify your citizenship.
Could not verify my identity.
So you're no longer in their records. When you sent the status documents that I do, did you send the cover letter with it?
I did. The cover letter, I know if I'm remembering the process right, we take the unredacted and send it to the Secretary of State in DC.
Yes.
Then we also send one to the state of our birth and the state we currently live in. I sent unredacted to all three.
Yeah. Did you file those in the county records first?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And then you registered mail to the federal SOS office,
Right.
Secretary of State.
Yes.
Okay.
Did the same for Mississippi and Louisiana.
Right. Well, the federal SOS is the only office that has the authority to change the records. Whether it's you telling them to change the records or DOJ telling them to change the records. So apparently somewhere along the line, your records got changed. And if they hadn't, you would have never seen or had that police officer tell you or the attorney tell you what they were seeing on that computer in that squad car.
Right.
So you're on the right track.
Yep.
Like she said.
That's right. I'm not over the hill yet, but I'm high enough to get nosebleeds.
So when you and I talked last, you were thinking about doing the ROE.
Correct.
I think that would be a mistake.
Okay.
Because it's already at the point where they recognize that you're somebody who can't be taxed. So your citizenship documents that you filed in the county achieve that task. Almost similar to doing a revocation of election. I think what I would do in response to that letter is ask them for a determination of of the taxpayer status.
I sent
Don't-
that out yesterday morning.
And so what'd you put in the letter?
Just that, I kept it short and sweet. Just asked for a decision on my taxable status. Signed it, of course, signed it beneficiary and mailed it off.
And did you use the CORR address, zip exempt?
Zip exempt, yes, did not use the COR.
Okay. So did you use your name in colons and hyphens and
And
house of?
Yes,
Okay, that's good.
that has become my standard signature,
Sure.
and my employer hates it.
What do you write on the back of the, how do you get your checks? Are they electronic?
Yes, my checks are electronic.
So when you did the form to your employer to allow that electronic transmission to happen, did you write anything above your signature on that form?
All rights reserved.
You didn't write 12 USC 411?
No, sir.
Just all rights reserved.
All rights reserved.
Yeah, okay. And so that goes into a bank account. Have you done anything with your signature card at the bank?
No,
I suggest you go in and tell them you want to do a new signature card. Tell them your signature changed.
okay.
And put a WO-P in front of your name. WO hyphen, not forward slash like I do, hyphen. Forward slash P is without prejudice under patent law. So I guess I patent my signature. WO hyphen P is without prejudice hyphenated under law. So put that in front of your name, and above your signature, put that in front of your signature, and then put an R in quotes at the end of your signature. And the reason for that is, the state citizens back after the Revolutionary War were given the status of kings and queens.
Mhm.
And R is the first legal definition of the words that start with the letter R. And it means Rex or Regina, king or queen. And then above your signature, write 12 USC section 411. 12 USC section 411 is your authority to change Federal Reserve notes into gold. And vice versa. When you write checks on that account, in the memo line or under your name and address or above your signature on the signature line and writing the check, write 12 USC 411. And depositing checks do the same thing. 12 USC 411 on the back of the check, and then sign WO-P, your name, however you sign your name. Doesn't matter whether it's initials or scribbles or X's. and then an R at the end. Because when you go look up the definition of signature, it's any mark. So that way you're taking your money, however you're getting your money, whether it's from W-2 wages or from other sources, you're keeping it in basically the gold standard. So Curtis, do you have anything to add in your story?
Well, that was the 3 wins. I am curious to see what their response is to that letter of decision.
So when you get that determination letter, if you get one, share that with me and we'll go from there. Maybe we'll do another one of these interviews
Okay.
and share it with everyone. So if you don't have anything more to add, let's open the floor for questions.
Yeah, I was gonna say something. I have Curtis. I still have
Yeah.
your time. Hey, TJ, what's up? I still have your timeline, Curtis, that you get. Well, actually, your sister made out for me when I
Yeah.
asked what you guys did. Would you be willing? Can I share that with everybody? I don't know. I haven't been on a Zoom
Yeah,
meeting. in so
man,
long,
go
I don't
ahead.
remember how it works. Can I drop stuff into chat and will it pop up as a doc?
No, I've got to give you permissions and then you do a share screen. And so you got to have it up on your screen.
Yeah, I've got it on the screen. I'm just trying to figure out a way that I could drop it. You know what I could do? I could put it into a mega link and I could drop the mega link into chat.
You could do that too, but
Okay,
I was
give me
just
a second. I
wondering,
could
were
do
you
that. Then-
wanting to show the timeline or you just want people to have it?
Well, I would like everybody to be able to see it because when he went over and he discussed what he did, they can have a written out timeline that we know is correct because he already looked at it. He confirmed that that's what he did, and his sister made it. So if anybody wants to actually see the actual timeline as to what he did do in order regarding the recording of the documents, what he sent them to, who he sent them to, I think that's something that everybody should be able to have to look at for reference. Is all I'm saying.
Sure.
Yeah, if there's a little file button at the bottom of the chat, 1, 2, 3 over, click on that and you should be able to upload it into the chat.
Okay. All right. Now I gotta
What's
go
going on,
find-
bud? Been a while.
Oh, not much. I've been bouncing around back and forth across country and finally got myself back into the Midwest and still doing meetings, obviously, every other Wednesday and every other Saturday on my Gilda server.
You're back in the
And-
Midwest?
Yeah, not all the way your side, but Michigan area. So,
Okay.
Okay, cool.
but yeah, I want to do some live classes in Michigan come next year when it gets a little bit warmer out. And I got to try and find
So
I'll
I
try and
can
find-
make you a co-host and you can do a screen share. Do you see your share screen about in the middle of the screen? It's green.
Yeah.
It's right
What I was
next to
gonna
chat.
do was I gotta grab. I think your folder. Hold on. I think your folder's on my desktop. I gotta find where that document is because it's in your folder. And let me find it. All right. So I can't drag and drop though. That's the problem.
While you figure that out, you mind if I answer a few of these questions?
You got questions in the chat or are they asking questions?
Well, we got questions in the chat and we got Mr. Jason and Michael have their hands up.
Yep, I see that. So let's go ahead,
Okay,
Michael.
I got it.
Michael, do you want me to make you a co-host and you do a share screen?
I just dropped the doc. I finally, I didn't, you didn't need to make me anything. I actually put it in the
Okay, I,
chat.
I
So,
hadn't done that yet. I was still sitting there with my finger on the button.
okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I can, either way, it's fine. But it's in
All right.
chat right now. If everybody wants to download it and look at it, we can all look at it at the same time if you want.
So, Michael, go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you, TJ, and thank you, Curtis, and the others that are here on this call. I have a quick scenario I'll lay out. My brother has two traffic tickets against him. One is speeding, and they also have an amicable to public safety against them, which is they're trying to get him for a year in jail. The amicable to public safety is that every time they try to arrest him, he defends himself. So he broke a few fingers of some cops in defending himself. So they determined he's a amicable to public safety. So anyway, they've been after him since April. I filed his status docs into the court. I filed his declaration of non-corporate status, and the judge has been ignoring that. And he had a settlement hearing. We've been in 3 times in a Zoom hearing, and Brian had not pleaded. So the judge finally said, well, it's evident you're not going to plead, so I'm putting in a plea for you. And he put in a plea of not guilty for him. And then he scheduled a new hearing for the 30th of October as a settlement hearing, and then a trial hearing on the 31st of October. We ended up getting a continuance, but a couple of days before that deadline, I also, because the judge was ignoring the status documents, I put in a document converting the constructive trust of the court into an express trust, making the judge and the attorney the fiduciaries for the court as trustee. So he's got a hearing coming up on 30 November. So I was wondering if anybody, Curtis, if you have any advice, how to get the judge to recognize those documents or how to proceed. And I heard one good.
He's got to speak up and say, Your Honor, there's affidavits in the record that have to be recognized, and you're not recognizing them. And I need you to recognize them. And if you're not going to recognize them, then it's an appealable error.
Okay.
Yes, judges do not like being told that they're going to be appealed. Now, another thing I've learned from a mutual friend of mine and TJ's is you may have missed the chance to, but I would submit just a simple document on the record thanking the judge for admitting on the record that he has a legal relationship with
yeah,
your brother.
Actually, he wouldn't put it in writing, but the clerk said that he had made that determination off the record, and that's why he was moving it to a settlement hearing and then a trial. So we have not done that letter, but I was thinking about doing that. How would I do that again?
I'll just tell him thank you for admitting on the record that you have a legal relationship with the defendant.
Okay.
And that we need to meet immediately to discuss how you are going to defend the defendant.
Okay. Yes, that sounds good. All right.
You got to remember that every law that requires a duty or a fine is a trust.
Yeah.
And they're trying to get you to admit, without you admitting it, that you're a trustee and that you had committed breach of trust and you owe something.
Yeah, I had that specifically laid out in the document.
Yeah, good.
And then I assigned them as fiduciaries in the matter.
Yeah.
So I was thinking of having Brian as beneficiary, order them to dismiss the case in his favor and with prejudice. And then when our business here is finished, thank you very much. Case closed.
Well, I guess that's why he ordered a settlement hearing. See, that's the first time I've ever heard in a criminal case, a settlement hearing.
Yeah, I never heard of it before either.
No,
and that was
usually
interesting.
it's, a pre-trial hearing. And they try to get you to, you know, contract with them.
Yep.
And then if you don't contract with them, you go to trial.
Yep, that's what he did.
And but a settlement hearing, see, that's on the civil side.
Well, and now it's just a plain hearing. Now it's back to a Zoom meeting because he wanted him in person on the 30th and 31st because they wanted to arrest him. Now it's back to a Zoom meeting and it's just a regular hearing with no details about what it's about.
So, he needs to verbally express that trust
Yeah, okay.
and and do exactly what Curtis just said.
Yeah.
Lewis, I see you're on. Do you want to chime in a little bit on this?
Oh, yeah. Would you like me to tell them what I did in federal court back in '08?
Go for it.
Yeah.
Well, actually, maybe I should give them a little of my history first. Is that okay?
Yeah, I think I brought up some of your history. Was it 04 when you got a criminal tax case dismissed?
No. You got that one a little confused. Okay, so part of my history, folks, is I survived a 31-hour armed standoff with the feds in 2004. I changed my status to state citizen of Washington State, the 1878 state, in early 2004.
TJ, we're having a hard time hearing him.
You need to get closer to your mic.
Okay, we've had this problem in the past. Let me kill the video, that helps. Okay, so in 2004, I filed my first status documents in April of 2004. And besides doing that, I managed to piss the feds off big time because of doing talk shows and putting out too much truth. So in August, they came down on me and tried to do a search on me, and I wouldn't let them. So I had a 31-hour armed standoff with them and wound up doing 10 months in federal prison for interfering with a federal officer in the performance of their official duty, which they never could prove that they had an official duty under Title IV of U.S. Code Section 72. Anyway, in coming out of that, I was ordered to do 33 months of supervised release. And when you're released from federal custody, you're required to report to a probation officer within 72 hours, which I did. And this guy shoved all kinds of papers in front of me to sign. And he didn't pay any attention to what I did. And I signed everything, no consent to contract, no assured value, no liability accepted. That was it, nothing else. Fast forward about 8 months, and he brought 3 charges against me, none of which had to do with the fact that I was not showing up every month to report. So we had a nice hearing in front of a federal judge. In the meantime, let me back up a little bit. During the trial in 2004, I submitted an affidavit of non-tax liability that was written by a very bright fellow who has a JD degree, but refused to become an attorney because of the oath to Satan. Anyway, it was a little overkill. It was like 47 pages. So in the 2006 hearing, and I don't remember what the first charge was now, but the U.S. attorney had the probation officer on the witness stand, and they went through their little dog and pony show that had been well rehearsed. And the judge asked if I had any questions. And I said, I absolutely do. I said, Mr. Probation Officer, do you remember saying that I signed certain documents? Yep, sure do. I said, I'd like to see those documents. Do you have them? He says, yeah. Judge says, time out. Bailiff, go make copies for everybody. Bailiff comes back, spread those out to everybody. I said, now, Mr. Probation Officer, would you kindly read to the court what I wrote for my signature? And apparently he's never looked at it. And he looks at it and goes, I can't read it. I said, I believe it says blah, blah, blah. And the judge says, I believe it does too. Charge number 1 dismissed. Second charge was refusing to sign a IRS form that would allow them to access anything and everything that has a social security number on it. And I said, Your Honor, can the probation officer force me to commit perjury? No. Can this court force me to commit perjury? No. Well, I can't sign those documents without committing perjury. Judge says, well, if you could modify the documents any way you wanted to, would you sign it then? I said, I sure would. Well, why don't you do that? So I just marked the hell out of the documents, signed it, Washington State citizen, all rights reserved, and a scribble. Oh, and I marked out the part that said U.S. citizen and all that other bullshit. Give it to the judge. The judge looks at it, says, okay, hands it to the bailiff. The bailiff takes it to the U.S. attorney. The U.S. attorney says, Your Honor, we can't get any information with this. And the judge says, oh, well.
It's on.
Then the third charge was refusing to sign a release for them to access my medical records and my educational records. And I asked the judge, I said, can the probation officer make a judgment against me like that without a court order? The judge says, of course not. I said, well, check the judgment order against me, and I don't think you'll find anything like that. So the judge checked the record and says, you're right, charge dismissed. So I beat him on all 3 charges. And then finally the judge says, okay, I'm entering into the record that you are not a U.S. citizen and you are not a U.S. taxpayer. I said, thank you very much. Now here's where it gets interesting. I recently tried to get copies of all of that, and there is no case number for that case. It does not show in the records anywhere. I called the clerk and they said, we don't have any records like that. So they expunged everything. Now, fast forward to 2008, and the feds come down on me with a 32 count indictment. And I can tell you that my status as a state citizen of Washington State is why I'm not sitting in prison right now. Because a year and a half after the trial was over, someone in the court administrator's office in DC called me and told me that the judge was ordered not to let our case come up to appeal because they did not want a precedent of my status on the appellate record. So that's a little of my history. And yes, state status is the key to everything. That's how you make them leave you alone. Now, they'll still try, and you have to be on guard. But what I did to federal judge, well, when they arrested me in 2008, they hauled me immediately into federal court. And for 45 minutes, I refused to be the defendant. So they took me to the federal detention center overnight, brought me back the next day, another 45 minutes of the same thing in front of a different judge. And finally, at the end of that, he said, well, I'm going to send you to North Carolina, which is where the other 3 defendants were, and see if they can get jurisdiction over you. I held them off for 9 months until I had everything into the case that I wanted in the case.
If you'll get, I'll get him every time tonight.
Hey, Curtis, mute. So in February of '09, I was in front of Judge David Kessler in Charlotte, North Carolina. And he kept trying to get me to plead for the defendant. And he said, well, I'm going to enter a plea for you. And I jumped up out of my chair and yelled, fantastic. Let the record show that Judge Kessler knows the defendant, has a legal relationship with the defendant, is authorized to act on behalf of the defendant, and agrees to represent the defendant at trial. He sat there for like 5 minutes like a deer caught in the headlights. And finally he looks over at the U.S. attorney and says, are we done? Well, there is absolutely no record of that anywhere. And there is no record of any plea ever being entered on behalf of the defendant. So you can have fun with them if you're prepared.
Okay. Thank you, Lewis.
You're welcome.
So we need to move on
Jason.
here. We got several people wanting to ask questions, and we're now 12 minutes past 9. We're going to end this at 9:30. So Jason, you are next. Questions.
Hey guys.
Hopefully these questions are related to the topic at hand and not new topics like traffic tickets and breaking cops' fingers.
This question is not about breaking cop fingers, but it's Jason with Americans in Action. Hi Clyde. Hi TJ. Hi Lewis.
Hey, Jason.
Hey guys. Great to hear you. Great to see you. Love everybody on here. A thought came across for you, Curtis, and I wanted to put it out there to the group as a think tank, also for Michael. If you send a declaration inquiry of your status to the 3-letter agency, as opposed to perfecting title on it, are you potentially reopening up a contract with them? As opposed to saying, thank you so much, I accept that, perfect the title, game over.
So what kind of a scenario are you talking about? Are you talking about sending your status documents to the SOS office?
No, I'm talking about
who you are.
I'm talking about Curtis's situation. If I heard him correctly, the 3-letter agency said, we don't know who you are.
Right.
And he wants to respond to them and say, well, who am I? And I'm saying, thank you so much, perfect the title, and move on.
Well, he's
And
not
that way you don't.
He's not asking who he is. He's asking them for a determination that he's no longer a taxpayer.
Right. My question was, though, if he responds in that way, can't they reopen up a contract with them and say, well, since you're asking, you are?
No.
As opposed to accepting what they write and perfecting the title on it as a beneficiary and saying, okay, great. Thanks so much for acknowledging that I'm not a taxpayer. I'm going to go live my life now. Perfect title.
As my thinking, no, that wouldn't be re-engaging in a contract with them. To me, it's more of a CYA game. I would rather have a piece of paper with their letterhead on it stating I am not. So that way, if they ever try to come back in 2 years or 10 years, I could take a copy, send it back to them, say, no, this is what you said. It still applies.
Gotcha. Will they send you a letter that says you're not a taxpayer, or can you write a letter to them and say, so thanks for this, just to confirm, you're saying that I'm not a taxpayer, and if you don't respond to it, then you agree, or something along those lines?
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I think I'll be resending one very soon.
Because when I was listening to you, I was like, it could be a trickery by them to do exactly what you're doing. That's what came up for me. As opposed to ending cycle and having them confirm, like I just mentioned.
Right. No, you got a very good point. It's definitely something worth thinking about and adding to another simple letter and just mailing it off.
Yeah, because the ultimate goal for all of this is settlement of the estates. That's what the whole system is based on. It's what the whole IMF runs off of. The special drawing rights are based upon the fact that our estates are being administered and our productive value is being traded through the IMF, which every member country then gets their share of based upon the amount of infants that have been registered at the foundling hospitals. So it's about settlement of the estate. You're the heir and the executor. Those are the two highest positions you always want to keep. And I would never tell anybody to say that they're the beneficiary, because if you take a benefit from your own estate, there's a maxim of Roman civil law. It's called beneficium abstinente. And what it means is that if you take a benefit under Roman civil law, you're abstaining from being the heir. Now, that used to be something you could do under Roman civil law when you say you had somebody of blood that had too many debts. So they had more debts than what their estate was worth. And you, as the beneficiary, could do a beneficium abstinente. Say, I abstain from being the heir. I just want the benefit of, maybe the title or whatever things might come that's not more than what the debt is, because, or else I would have to pay my previous mother or father or whoever their debts. And so if you do that, it sets you into a position where they could say, oh, you're the beneficiary. Great. You can have a benefit and go to jail. I don't ever say that. I'm the executor and the heir, because if you look up the Magna Carta, go look up Article 3, 4, and 5 of the Magna Carta. It completely lays it out what the barons had to deal with way back then, and we're still dealing with it because because nobody pays attention to the statute of mortmain, really, honestly, which is one of the Westminster statutes, and that's what's eating this country alive, is this aspect of mortmain, that we're all presumed dead and that we're all presumed an infant and that they're administering our estates, and that they're doing so because of our lack of knowledge and our failure to come forward as heir and executor and literally have livery of our estates. And there used to be a court called the Court of Wards and Liveries back in England, back when everybody knew they were supposed to do this. And you went to the Court of Wards and Liveries to literally what was called sue out your livery. And you had to go and sue your guardian, whoever that may be, whether it was the king or a baron or some earl or whatever. You had to sue your guardian basically as a passage of coming of age ceremony, which literally you did have to put into this court case. You had to do what was called a proof of life and not proof of life, but you had to do a proof of age inquisition. So you did a proof of age inquisition, and you'd go around to various different people like monks or other people in the community and say, put down on a piece of paper that that I've come of full age and that I can handle my own affairs. And they would do so. And then you would take this into the Court of Wards and Liveries, and you'd sue out your livery against your guardian, and you'd prove that you'd come of full age, just as it says in the Magna Carta. Well, great. Do we have any of that same type of remedy written down anywhere in America? No. And the reason is because they don't want us to have any. They don't want us to realize what the system is that has been running for several hundred years, going all the way back to the Magna Carta.
Wait a minute. Yes, there is.
There is? Where?
Yeah,
USC or
public law? No, public law. What is it, Lewis? 83-743, 740 something.
Public Law 88-241, Section 14-701 and 702. That is your remedy. That is your coming of age. You're found living, alive and well. That's your statute right there.
And it's public law? You say, wait,
Public
where?
law, yes.
Public Law 88-241.
That's 241. Okay, I had a 242. Okay, 241, section 14, subsection 701, 702. Okay, I got that right. I just put it in the chat if I got that right.
Yeah.
And is that are you looking for are you looking at like a federal act, or is it under where is it? Is it under USC or
Hold on a minute. And I'll
is
give
this
you the
congressional
title.
record you're talking about?
Well, you want
No,
to
you
use
just-
you want to use the public law. You don't want to use the USC or CFRs.
Yeah, yeah. Granted,
Yeah,
yep,
it-
totally understand that.
It's a public law enacted by Congress. Give me a moment and I'll give you a little more information.
Basically, the first law says that you're dead, and the second law says you're found alive.
Okay, yeah,
Or to be restored of all rights.
it's interesting that they wrote it like that because I had the case. It was Tammy Peppermint a long time ago, back I think it was 2012 or something. And we had done a case, started off as a mortgage case. And anyway, we wrapped everybody up all the way through, all the way to Congress. And basically what we said was that all the infants have to be found to be living, and in the order we put down that they are required to be returned to their own houses. And we served that on the House of Lords, Congress, the IMF, the Vatican, and a few other international critters. And 2 days after that, the IMF pulled the United States off the special drawing rights list for a little while until they had to do some shell shuffling and put it under another fiction of law. But it was an interesting reaction from the IMF. And I bet you anything that public law was probably after we did that, because we made it known that no, the presumption cannot be that we're dead. The
That
presumption
public
has
law
to
has
be
been
that.
around for a long time.
Has it? Okay, well then I'm surprised that they even bothered with the presumption in the beginning, but all right.
December 23rd of 1963.
63. Okay.
Yeah, I just put it in the chat for everybody.
Okay, thanks, Liz. I will grab that.
I'm kind of glad we brought that up, but so we have somebody else that's got their hand up, has a question, I guess. Callum?
I'll make it quick. Jason, you're right, because Jesus, the I am, remember his name is Emmanuel. He returns in the air, right? In the clouds with white. So clean hands, in the brain, knowing who you are, and in the air jurisdiction. So I think you're right there, man. Although I do think we can work all three of them because it's water. So it's the triune that is gathered from the Bible. Okay.
Without air, there wouldn't be any water.
That's right. There's water on the land, there's water in the water, right? It's water, right? A comment
That's
I want to
why
make.
I like trust, because trust is the law of air.
Yeah,
You know, the Bible is a trust.
trust for sure.
You know,
Comment I want to make real quick. I know everybody's going through stuff and you're in the courts and stuff. I don't know. I don't hear it in the groups. But like one thing that you can do to protect your assets in the bank account is to move it to a non-interest bearing account. Every bank must have at least one that's non-interest bearing. And the reason for that is because income is interest. That's the definition of it. So once you put it in a non-interest bearing account, there's no possibility that income can be going in there. That's what you're saying to the bank. Change your signature.
as soon as you open up an interest bearing account, you're receiving income from within the United States. You're a taxpayer, and even a state citizen can be a taxpayer. Just read the Brushhopper case.
That's right. And then question. I have a question for me. I declared a new name, and I know for sure that is a free name. So I'm a national since 2019, but I want to get my passport under the name that I have here as a U.S. citizen. I was naturalized. I came from Argentina. So the process that you guys are explaining, it looks fantastic. I'll do it. And I got a couple of my friends on this call right now. Same situation. So what can you suggest for moving out of that naturalization? I need to just rescind
I'll
that.
take this one, TJ, if that's okay. So wanting a passport, no, why do you need it? That's the biggest question.
No, I have one, but I
Okay.
have friends that are here for many years now. They've been going through the USCIS process. They're coming up on their day, to go get naturalization, get citizenship. They're learning about being a national, and
Send me an email
okay.
at Mellow Wisdom, MELOWIS. You have it, I believe.
Yeah, if not, I'll take it from the recording later.
MELOWISDOM@gmail.com. Send me an email, ask for the status documents, and I'll just send you the whole file.
Okay, fantastic.
You'll have to download it from Google Drive. If I do it through the email, I could send you a link to. Do you have mega.nz?
No.
Mega is one of the best
Cloud services.
yeah, it's a cloud storage, but it's very, very, very secure.
One more comment I have that was relating to what somebody else said, reaching out to the SOS. I've been hearing in the different groups that there's a simple process now, a new way to get the nationality that people are trying, and it's really working. So, if you're going for the national passport, according to the Secretary of State, they require two things, right? Proof that you're not a citizen, and then if you live outside the states, an oath. The proof of not being a citizen, I've heard from many people that all they're doing is going to the USCIS and they're asking for a FOIA request about their name. And all the people that are born here, that are born within the states, are getting back that, no, you're not a citizen. So then they're using that letter, which is from an immigration officer, and they're using that as the proof that they're not a citizen, and they're getting their national passports.
When you say national passport, what are you talking about?
The national of the United States, the regular passport, the passport A,
Okay, there are citizens of the United States and there's nationals of the United States. And you are not a national of the United States because you don't live in American Samoa or Swains Islands. Those are the only people that are U.S. nationals.
That is
Yeah.
correct.
But the passport is issued to the state citizen as well, isn't it?
Right,
No.
but that's a different thing. What he's saying clearly is that the only thing that's a national is what Lewis just said. What you're talking about, the proper status, is a de jure state citizen, also under the Expatriation Act, known as an American citizen. You never want to use the word state national because there is no such thing.
Okay.
And never
It doesn't
has.
exist.
National of a state, the definitions in the
No,
US.
you're just a citizen of the state. You're a capital C citizen of one of the states of the Union, also known as one of the
Read
people.
Article 4, Section 2 of the Constitution.
Yeah, there you go. Right.
Exactly.
So where does the Floridian, for example, in the GPO manual where it talks about that's the nationalities, how does that apply? How does that connect to that?
That's the nationality of a U.S. citizen.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. What was that section? Article 4?
Section 2. They call it the Supremacy Clause, but that's what protects state citizens. That and the Ninth Amendment. The Ninth Amendment is basically the nullification clause. The Ninth Amendment nullifies anything that's repugnant to the Constitution.
So,
PJ, didn't you mention something that it was in Title 8 USC 110122B?
Yeah, see, that's what I used to believe, but it's 8 United States Code 1101 A21 and 23. Citizen of a state and a nation. And you don't want to use those statutory terms. That puts you right back under the statutes.
But 22B you do, right? Is that what you told me?
No.
Okay.
Now I'm confused. TJ, are we state citizens or state?
That's right.
You don't want to be state
national
national.
is
Right?
not the right term. I've been telling you that, Clyde, for months.
I know. So what?
Okay.
State it
Clyde,
clearly.
Clyde, there is no such thing, never has been such a thing as a state national.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, some
Now,
groups have adopted that term, but it's a made up term. And the problem with a made up term is you have no lawful or legal, like, it doesn't mean anything to whomever you're talking to, especially
Right.
these government agencies. So I understand the confusion, Clyde, because I've been there myself, and I've followed some of these groups that use it, and I feel really proud that they've corrected their status and changed it to an American state national, and according to that code, 110121A and 23. But if you actually read what it says, it just doesn't apply to us, and it's not the correct status. And it's
Right.
always going to be the statutes referring to you for their own use. And that's the problem. We're trying to not be in their jurisdiction. So why would you use one of their terms for you?
Right.
Right. You want to stay completely out of Roman civil law, 100%. Statutes, acts, ordinances, and codes under Roman civil law is not what you want to deal with. You want to deal with constitutionally based language or public law, because public law applies to everybody. Public
I would like to-
policy doesn't.
That makes sense because the whole U.S. code is talking to person, for the man, right?
That's right.
Basically, what the
of
US
person-
code is corporate bylaw.
Yep. It's corporate bylaw it's specifically corporate bylaw to administer the assets of the estates of abandoned infants. And if you look in USC, the definition of person is under 1 USC subsection 8. It literally tells you that a person is an infant. So every single code, every single US code, every single ruling of every administrative agency, every single time they use the word person, they mean an infant. Now, why is that? It makes perfect sense, because if you really understand how the history of this whole thing came along, what they were fighting in 1215, the barons, when they beat King John at Runnymede, they were fighting against the same shit, against this idea that somebody else has the right to administer your estate because you are not of full age, that you have not come of full age, or that you can't handle your own affairs. Well, they had a remedy for it back then, but they sure as hell aren't telling us what the remedy is here, for the exception of what TJ and Lewis talked about, that public law, which I'll go check out. I had to create the remedy basically just out of thin air from going back into history and figuring out how to do this. So I've created a proof of life and proof of age inquest that gets signed by a judicial coroner, gets put onto the public record, and that's something that Curtis did as well, along with the kill warrant, which is just part of the VSOF status docs. But it's a very convoluted thing that they have done, and you really have to go back in history to see the totality of it.
Can I say something, please?
Go for it.
I would like to know what Jason from Americans in Action has to say about what you guys were talking about, the state nationals, because he does help others convert into state nationals. So I would like to know his perspective on what you guys just shared.
Okay. Sure. We help people correct their status. The language that they like to use, we're in the camp of getting the education where you say state citizen. We also are in the camp of saying, yeah, the state national based on the codes and the US codes is not like what you're saying, what people are thinking it to be. However, what we really are passionate about is it's less about you using the language and more about knowing who you are. And if they're going to rebut something in a court, or if they're going to rebut something administratively, let them rebut it and then correct it. If you can come in and say, all right, I'm a state citizen, and then your documents, your administrative process goes through, that's excellent. We've had people win by saying that they're a state national. And one example of that is we have a gentleman that was traveling cross country, and he was stopped at a border, like they were doing a border patrol type of thing by military, actually. And he doesn't have plates. He's got private plates, and he's corrected his status, how he did it, similar to a David Strait, and then modified it. But he knows who he is. and he's very much big on the Bible too. That's his gig. And when they asked, hey, are you a citizen? They literally asked him that question. Are you a citizen? He said, no, I am not. I'm a state national. And the military said, you're free to go. So, and that was his true experience. I think it was in New Mexico. And he was driving cross country, and other people were stopped who said, yeah, I'm a US citizen, and so on and so forth. So we have both schools there from experience, people saying state national, people saying state citizen. I personally like the state citizen, but I also am supportive of the state national because I've seen success in both areas. And the common denominator that I can put together of why both of those camps work is because both people who use that language knew who they are and who they are connected with source energy spiritually, and they were able to transcend in the administrative process energetically as well as collectively in their consciousness, and they entered into the air jurisdiction and changed the reality there, and they were able to go. That's why we don't use templates, because we realize that whoever is going to be writing a template, you can give two templates to the same to two different people, and you'll get two different outcomes, because it has less to do with the language. Even Black's Law says substance is defined as your essence. Your essence is the Essenes. The Essenes goes back to pre-biblical principles, who were ancient shaman and shaw women who were talking about esoteric law, which is what the courts, whether they're conscious of it or not, use energy and spell casting. So if you're able to use your essence and know who you are, your remedy lies therein. So your long answer to your question is, I've seen it be successful with people doing both. And it's because of who the person is, forgive the expression, and not necessarily the language.
I'm a citizen of the original jurisdiction.
There you go. We have a guy that we've worked with and know, and TJ's seen it, and some of his fourth letter of decree, our letterhead, grantor in original jurisdiction and beneficiary of the resulting trust. We use that letterhead successfully. I have evidence in my possession of where a court locally addressed me and everybody else in Americans Action as beneficiary, my Jason Ian of the house of my last name, grantor in original jurisdiction, beneficiary of the resultant trust, care of on the cover of the envelope, in the Republic on the cover of the envelope, with their letterhead. So I have a document with wedding signature from the court recognizing my status based on that language. And I show it to people in our workshops. But so it really is less to do with which, in my experience, in what words you use and what documents you use, and more of what's going on energetically with the people. And then technically, if you're in the consciousness, and I think Lewis brought this up with one of the guys that they were working with, a Native American who knew nothing, not even to write. But because he knew who he was to the degree that he did, the judge brought him into exclusive equity. How come it worked for him? Because
he knew who he was. He wouldn't
he knew
accept
who
the
he
spell.
was. That's exactly right. So we tell people anything that we do, whether we're working with a traffic ticket or whether we're doing repudiation process, or call it what you will, the success happens when you know who you are and not who you are not, meaning you're not a United States citizen, you're not a dead entity, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You can speak in the language of trust, even if it's 25, 35, 45%, your essence will override the form. And they disclose that to you. When they say truth is sovereign in commerce, that's a true statement. Because the truth is sovereign in any jurisdiction. And if
it worked. That's what
what's that?
That's what I did with my affidavit of birthright and political status. It was spiritual energy the way I wrote it, and it worked. Like in 2 weeks, the FBI showed up and they told me I had not broken any law. They were asking me, "Who are you teaching this to? Are you harboring fugitives?" So I knew I had stepped right out of the whole thing. with one recording. One.
There you go. So
Finished.
the point is, they disclose it when you decode their language, like in the UCC's Truth is Sovereign in Commerce. They're telling you right there that if you know the truth, then you're going to be sovereign in commerce. So by definition, commerce is fictitious. So if you bring in the truth from your heart, it's biblical principles, the truth will set you free. And you start using the Bible or spiritual principles or what have you, like TJ was just saying, that the Bible is a trust, the Bible is a law book, and you bring in your language, then you can say, I'm a state national, and they'll let you go. Or you can say, I'm a state citizen, and they'll let you go. So it depends on what's going on with the man or the woman. But the common denominator that I have seen in my own personal experience and with those that we've helped is they know who they are.
Who you are.
And that's really what it's about, more than anything. And they're going to try to fool you, contract you, bring you in any way they can to create controversy, to keep you wearing the mask until you capitulate and recontract with them. And if somebody doesn't know who they are, they'll capitulate, acquiesce, and the beat goes on.
And they have no idea of what just happened.
Exactly.
Let me add a little bit to that, fellas. So I have a friend that lives in Arizona who has no government issued identity papers of any kind. The closest thing he has to an ID is a Costco card with his picture on the back of it. He goes to the airport to fly cross country, and he goes to the first class counter, even though he's flying economy, and hands them his ticket. And they say, "Oh, you're not first class." He says, "Please run my name." They run his name and go, "Oh, yes, sir. Somebody will be here in a few minutes to help you." That somebody shows up, takes him around all the security stuff, and tells him to have a good flight. He travels internationally that way. It is about wearing your status as part of your skin. He doesn't need paperwork. He doesn't need all the bullshit. He is what he is, and they recognize it. He goes down to Mexico driving, goes across the border. Nobody even thinks twice about him. They say, "Yes, sir, carry on." No problem.
This is the same guy that used to work for Lehman Brothers.
That's the same one. Pretty smart fella.
I've spoken to him, haven't I?
Don't
Didn't we
think
have a
so.
conference call with him? Or was that the
Oh, yeah,
bond
we did.
guy?
Yeah, we did on that investment thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I thought so.
yep. Yep. He gets stopped for speeding when he didn't know that the speed limit changed. He walks away with no ticket every time. Because they know who he is. He wears his status in his face, in his words, in his expression. He doesn't need paperwork.
Yeah.
Guys, I have a quick question. Sorry, would love to get it out of the way quickly.
Well, let's make this the last one. We got to call it a night, guys.
Yeah.
It's
Sure.
going into getting close to 2 hours now.
Of course, it was just going back to what Curtis said earlier about when he sent out his he sent all his paperwork to all, after he had filed, to all the SOS officers, and then you said to the state that he was born in. I was born, and I think some other people were probably born overseas as well. And obviously Australia is a lovely police state, which is why it's a pleasure to be here. In the US, that is. Has anybody done that where they have to send it back to the state that they were born in out of overseas? Obviously, I'm still just wrapping my head around. I'm relatively new to the process and figuring it all out here in the US. But has anyone sort of figured that out or done it in Australia or anything?
My short answer is no, but if somebody like Zen or Lewis wants to chime in on that one.
Yeah. So what you do is you send it to the state that you were in when you received your naturalization.
Okay, so it would just, for me, it would be Florida. That's it.
Yep, send it to the SOS. Or possibly the Attorney General, depending on what it is you're dealing with, but generally the SOS.
You know, what's really funny about it is soon as you file that declaration of intention or a state declaration or whatever you want to call it in the county records, the state SOS office is the first office that receives that from the county.
Yep.
They're reading all that stuff and they're indexing it, and then they're sending it up to the federal SOS office. And it's most likely going to get there electronically before the mail.
Okay.
So you're just basically killing two birds with one stone.
Sure. Okay, but I don't have to worry about doing anything in Australia unless I, want to go through the whole process there, even if it's possible, given that everything's totally different.
It's way different.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're talking about crown law.
Yeah. There's no constitution there.
Yeah, I've got a couple of people in my group that have done what you're talking about, and they did it through the Secretary of State for the state where they received their naturalization.
Sure. Okay. Easily understood.
Mm-hmm.
I just wasn't sure if I had to do much in Australia.
Nah, stay out of Australia.
Yeah. Yeah. Done deal. Thanks, guys. Appreciate everything and the wisdom.
DJ, it's Clyde.
Yes.
Fantastic call. Man, I learned so much tonight. It's really, really good here. Good stuff here.
Yeah, and so I'll get you the recording and you can send it on to others. And
Yeah.
same with everybody here.
Yeah.
This recording you can send on to others.
Absolutely. Everybody should send it out, as many people as we can. This is great knowledge. And thanks everybody that participated.
And thank Lewis and Ian and Jason, and I guess that's Jason's last name.
Yeah. Jason,
for coming on, Sam for coming on. I didn't know you guys were going to be here. So, great, because this is really the first time a lot of, legal heads got together in one chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
We need
we
it
should do this more often.
again.
Yeah, we do need it again, but this was epic.
Yeah, to answer Pablo's question very early on about how many people have done their status documents, the best information I can get is somewhere north of 50 million.
Wow.
So imagine if we could just come together,
I know
what we could accomplish.
Yep.
What we could accomplish, and sooner or later there's going to be a tipping point, because this is how you take this country back.
Yep.
Was there a timeline on that 50 million, or is it,
That was about a year ago.
is that all 50 million since a certain date, or last year, or?
Probably last 20 years.
The problem, that I see going on is the government knows when they shock the conscience of the people. And they did that very thing with COVID. And it woke a lot of people up.
Yep.
And they started seeing more and more state citizens, state national, state whatever, change of citizenship documents. Let's just put it that way.
Right.
And I believe that's part of the reason why they're bringing so many illegals into this country right now, is to
Counterbalance it.
thin out our influence.
Yeah, it's an IMF problem. It's literally a special drawing rights problem. When it gets to the point where enough of us say no and we're out, what is the corporate state going to have to draw off of? Nothing.
Nothing.
Exactly.
That's the
Right.
problem. That's the problem they have. I mean,
Quickest way to fix it, nobody vote.
yeah, that too.
Oh, they'll forge the votes anyway, so don't worry about it.
That's right. Yeah, I forgot about that.
True.
Yeah, by
Yeah,
the
true.
semi loads.
Exactly.
Guys, I shared the affidavit of birthright and political status that I did as a Moor. It's something that today I would rewrite a little different, but I encourage everybody to look at it. I think it's a very powerful document, and if you can give me feedback, that'd be fantastic. I'll leave my number or my email in the chat.
Thanks, Pablo.
Yeah, or Pablo, if you got a link to it or something, I mean,
I just put it in the chat here. You can download it. If you go a little bit up,
oh, okay, all right.
there's called Pablo_ESQ. Like a 9-page, you know.
All right, I got it.
All
I got it.
spiritual. It's really all
Well,
spiritual.
Clyde,
Yes, sir.
tell us what you have planned for February, and then let's call it a night.
Okay, I'd just like to get together Jason's group, Americans in Action, Dave Roberts' group, you know, some of the coordinators I know from Anna's group, like Ralph and Giles in Florida, and all the other groups that are doing this, that are involved in this. I know there's a group in New Mexico I invited to come tonight. I don't think they're on, but we need to all work together. And there's so many of us. Like that, I agree. I thought at least 30 million, but you know, 50 million may be right, because this has been going on a long time, and more and more people awaken. You got people like Jan Helper right now from the Department of Defense out there talking on mainstream media about the corporation of 1871. You know, it's starting to break through now, and I just think it's time for all of us to get together. So I'm going to put together this thing February. Everybody that's on here tonight is definitely invited. And if you know different groups that I don't know about that are working on this, let's invite them too.
Get this recording, you know, I'll send it to the link, the mega link to everyone.
Right.
And, what's that?
Okay, that's good.
So
All right,
anyway,
thank you, everyone. TJ, great job. Everybody that talked, fantastic. Thank you so much.
all right, you're welcome. Thank you. So
All
I'll
right.
send out the mega link to everyone probably in the morning. I don't know if I can get to it tonight. It's going to take a while just to download, and maybe I will. You know, I got to get it up on Mega first. For those that don't have Mega, you need to get it. It's free. Go to the mega.nz and go down to the middle of the products page. They kind of hide the free one, and it's like right in the middle of the page.
Could you put this in the chat so people will be able to see it when they the recording? Mega.nz, is it?
Mega.nz. Yeah, it's the most secure cloud service in the world.
Okay.
They used to be in the United States, and the United States wanted their keys
Right.
to break into people's accounts, and they said no, and the United States sued, and they moved it to New Zealand.
Okay.
Hey, TJ, do you have any way to save what's posted in the chats? Because there's some good references in there for people.
Not that I'm aware of. I'm not Zoom savvy.
Me neither.
Okay.
Yes, there is a way. Yes, there is a way. There is a way. When you open the chat, you'll see 3 little dots that says more. When you select that, the save chat comes up.
I'm glad somebody knows how to do that.
3 little dots next to the name.
Next to where it says screenshot at the bottom.
Yeah, under more.
I see it at the bottom right-hand corner.
Yeah, it says save chat. Just hit that, I guess.
That's right. Then if you're not certain where it saves, briefly, it opens a little window, then you can then go over to the
Oh,
folder. Because
I don't
a lot of people don't know how to find files that end up getting saved. They get lost on the hard drive because they don't really comprehend how to find them. So when you, if anyone needs it, I've saved the chat. So
Okay.
I don't want to take up more time.
Thank you.
mine
Oh.
don't say save chat when I click on the 3 dots.
Yeah,
I don't
I
either.
do. I see it.
I don't get it either, so thank you, whoever that was that said they were gonna save it.
Yeah, make sure
Yeah,
you click on the 3
Nancy.
dots that's in chat. Click on the 3 dots that's in chat,
Yeah,
right
that's
underneath the
what
chat
I'm
bar.
clicking. That's what I'm clicking on.
No, okay, I see it.
Oh.
I see it.
No, you're not. Come here.
TJ, I'll send you the chat. I'll send you the whole thing, the text. Okay.
Just make sure it's the one that's below where it says type message here as opposed to above it.
Right. Good point. Yes.
You know, here I am, the host, and I can't even. My 3 dots isn't showing it.
You made
What I
it.
have is 3 dots beside everybody's name, and looks like I got to go in and do it individually.
That's all right, TJ. I recorded the whole thing on OBS and I've scrolled up and down through chat enough times that everybody'd see it at least 3 times. So
Okay.
And guys, a question: if you save the chat, where does it go?
Probably.
Briefly, it goes into a program folder, but briefly, when you save the chat, it says chat saved, and then right next to it on the right side, it says link to folder. Well, that disappears shortly. So you can select that and it will show you where it has saved it on your computer.
I got it. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Most of your Microsoft stuff, it'll be stored in your documents folder on your drive.
Yes, correct.
It'll default to that, and then you can move it to a shared folder somewhere.
Yes,
Yeah.
John, that's exactly correct. Yes.
Same place where, you know, when I download, when we end, you know, the recording, it downloads into the same file.
And then like a lot of the files that you shared there for downloading, what it'll do is you'll right click on it. It'll show to save it. I just save it on my desktop, and then I come back later and pull it out of my desktop and put it in a file that I can find later.
Yeah, that's
It
a
makes
text.
it simple. It's quick.
Yeah, that's a text file, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Like the PDFs or whatever's been shared, you